It's an interesting thing how the horse is the common thing that pulls us all together. And it's no better. There's no better relationship than people that have that common bond of a horse, in my opinion. Oh, gee, my first memory was probably 6 or 7 years old, and my dad bought a pony, a little stud pony, that we had kept him till he was 35, and he died when he was 35. I couldn't believe it. He lived out behind my house. And I took him most everywhere we went.
Growing up in the farming community of Weatherford, Texas, David's early childhood was filled with everything Western.
My friends and I used to ride our horses to the movie. They had a movie theater on the square, and they actually had hitching posts behind the movie because it was kind of a normal thing for all of the kids to ride their horses. And we'd ride down there and watch the Saturday morning Western.
But it always wasn't fun and games.
My dad had a little farm just outside of Weatherford, and I was out there all the time riding when he wasn't making me bale hay, which was terrible for 10 cents a bale. It was pretty tough work throwing them up on that trailer, but horses were always part of my life.
David's father had come through the Depression, so he had little faith in education. But as the Depression settled, he was able to open a small car dealership.
And he said, "Son, you got to learn how to make a living." So I went to work on the wash rack, washing cars when I was 12. It used to kill me because my friends would be riding around with their girlfriends, but it turned out it was a good thing. I certainly learned how to make a living.
Opening a new dealership, David's father relocated them to Houston when he was 15 and became friends with the 7 original astronauts, especially Alan Shepard. David eventually moved back to Weatherford and managed to open a dealership of his own.
Anyway, I was living kind of hand to mouth and trying to make it work, and it was really pretty tough. And I was living on the float myself because I'd learned how to do it with my dad.
And that's when David got a call from his bank offering him a loan to take over a failing company. He partnered with his brother and Alan Shepard and was now in the halter horse business.
I mean, it's hard enough to make any money in the horse business anyway, as we all know. It never occurred to me that, how do you make money showing a halter horse? And it doesn't pay very well.
Needless to say, it was a disaster.
And after that, my affection for horses wasn't nearly as much as it had been my whole life. And so I decided right then that I was never going to own anything that ate when I was asleep. I just kind of walked away from horses, and about that time I had an opportunity to open another dealership in Dallas. And so I wound up moving off to Dallas, and for the next 30 years, I never got on a horse.
In 1983, David and Stacy were married, and David continued to build the car dealerships. At its peak, McDavid held 23 franchises selling 40,000 vehicles annually and, along with a partner, owned the Dallas Mavericks until selling the team to Mark Cuban. Eventually, longtime friend Tony Langdon invited David and Stacy to come watch him show his cutting horse in Houston.
So we did, and I watched him, and I thought, man, I said, that looks pretty exciting. And so shortly after that, I bought my first cutting horse, because I thought, well, now I've got time to, and maybe the ability to cover any loss I had. But this was big time. I wasn't going to have any losses on that deal.
David started training with Tony's trainer, Terry Riddle, and soon went to his first show.
I think I started on April 1st, April Fool's Day. That should have told me something. But anyway, we trained for 30 days. So I show, and sure enough, I stay out of his way for the first time ever, and I mark a 214 on Rocky's Playboy. And I thought, well, this is easy. I'm never going to have another poor day. Well, so happened, I never got through another run for 12 months after that. Never completed a run.
David desperately wanted Stacy to be involved, but she wanted nothing to do with it.
So I just went and bought her a horse, bought it from Paul Hansma. I just brought it to the ranch, and I took Stacy out there. I said, here's the horse I bought you. She said, I'm not planning on cutting. I said, well, you got to at least try.
After her first ride, she was hooked, and the McDavids started down a new path in their life together. They soon purchased the stallion He's a Pepto Spoonful, and that's when cutting took on a more serious tone.
That's really at the point when it switched from a hobby to a business.
David offered a $1 million incentive to horses sired by Spoonful, which helped drive excitement in the industry, and also volunteered his time by serving on the finance committee and offering his assistance in any way possible. The McDavids were also the driving force behind the NCHA fraternity being televised on RFD TV by sponsoring the broadcast.
Being a business guy, you look at sponsorships or advertising as what kind of results will you get? What will that generate? And that was an unknown. Nobody knew, nobody knew if anybody would watch it, if they would. So we just stepped up to sponsor it. But we did that several times, just trying to support the NCHA.
David has always been an involved leader and innovator, and one of his greatest accomplishments has been creating the Texas Major Events Trust Fund along with Alice Walton and Kit Moncrief. He was directly responsible for getting the legislation passed, which has contributed more than $20 million to NCHA events. For David, it's all a labor of love for the Western way of life.
I have it. I think Stacy has it, and I think I have it too. I think we have a Western mentality. And we love anything cowboy or cowgirl, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that nobody ever forgets about that segment of our society. We just can't let people forget about this way of life.
David's warm demeanor has been known to embrace many newcomers to the sport, and he's always thrived on contributing wherever he can in order to help everyone succeed.
We want to be a part of something that's doing great. So consequently, we want to do everything we can to help it be successful, whatever that is. And if we're fortunate enough to have been successful enough to sponsor a television show, we want to do that. But we kind of look at it as a privilege to be able to do that. Now, that doesn't mean we want to be foolish with it, but you do. You just want it to be successful. And you want everybody around you to be successful.
David has 3 children, sons David Jr. and Jimmy, and daughter Sterling, who's also been a strong competitor. David has been a top non-pro competitor, stallion owner, and along with his wife Stacy, who herself has NCHA earnings in excess of $1 million, continues to run an outstanding breeding and training facility in Weatherford. For his many generous contributions to the sport of cutting, David now becomes a member of the Hall of Fame.
I can't tell you how gratifying that is. I was totally flattered to even be considered for that, and I was actually unaware of it. I didn't know that was going on, but it was quite flattering to somebody to think that I was worthy of that honor, and I do think it's a genuine honor to get that.